Solitude is not loneliness. It's not abandonment. It's not a curse. Solitude is sacred. It's a divine strategy. When God pulls you away from the crowd, from the noise, from the chaos, it's because He's about to do something in you that can't be done in public. This generation fears solitude because it strips away every mask, every distraction, every excuse. You're left naked with your thoughts, your flaws, and your potential. That's why most people run from it. But the truth is, the man who learns to master solitude becomes untouchable. In solitude, the illusions fall apart. There are no likes, no validation, no claps, no fake smiles. Just silence, and silence is loud if you've been avoiding yourself. God uses solitude to confront you with who you really are, not who your friends say you are, not who your followers think you are, who you are when no one's watching. That's the real battlefield, not out there, but in here. When you're alone, your soul gets tested. You're not being punished. You're being purified. You're not being left behind. You're being elevated. Every warrior, every king, every prophet had to go through it. Jesus went to the wilderness. Joseph was thrown in a pit, then into prison. Moses was exiled to the desert. They were isolated before they were activated. Why? Because transformation requires separation. Power demands privacy. The problem is, people today crave company more than clarity. They'd rather be distracted than disciplined. They need noise to feel alive because silence exposes how empty they really are. But the man who can sit with himself, battle his demons, kill his excuses, and build in silence, that's a dangerous man. That's a man God can trust. That's a man who isn't ruled by public opinion because his strength was forged in private surrender. Solitude teaches you to think, to feel, to listen. You start hearing things you've ignored for years. You start realizing the areas where you've been weak, lazy, and compromised. You start seeing the mission. The vision gets sharper, the noise clears. God begins to speak, not through clouds or angels, but through your own conscience. Your soul starts waking up. It's in that quiet space where your identity becomes undeniable. You stop mimicking. You stop begging for attention. You start building. You become a weapon, calm, focused, and deliberate. You don't become strong by chance. You become strong by choosing the hard path. And solitude is a hard path. It breaks you, then it builds you. It kills the version of you that was dependent on others to feel important. It raises the version that knows he's chosen. You don't need applause when you've got alignment. You don't need company when you've got clarity. The man who embraces solitude becomes immune to manipulation because he no longer fears being alone. He knows that's exactly where God wanted him, not in the crowd, not in the comfort, in the fire of isolation. Weak men don't just fear failure. They fear silence, because in silence the truth speaks, and the truth is loud when you've spent your life hiding behind noise. Most people don't even realize how addicted they are to distraction. They can't sit still without grabbing their phone. They can't walk in a room without music playing. They need constant input to drown out the internal void they've refused to confront. Weak men build their lives on noise because silence exposes their weakness. When everything is quiet, your insecurities echo. The silence forces you to face your thought, raw, unfiltered, uncomfortable. That's why they run. That's why they keep themselves busy. They scroll, they binge, they drink, they chase. Anything to avoid the stillness, because stillness reveals the truth about who you are. No filters. No edits, just you, your choices, and the consequences. That's why silence is terrifying to the undisciplined. It exposes every area where they've been soft, lazy, compromised. But strong men, real men, don't run from silence. They welcome it. They use it because they understand that silence is a forge. It's where clarity is born. It's where discipline sharpens. It's where purpose becomes louder than pressure. You don't get stronger by surrounding yourself with noise. You get stronger by sitting in silence and doing the inner work no one sees. That's what separates a man who leads from a man who follows. Weak men fear silence because silence demands accountability. There's no one to blame when it's just you and your thoughts. No one to impress, no performance, just brutal honesty. That's where most people fold. They can't handle the mirror. They can't handle the responsibility of their own life. They want to stay distracted because it keeps them comfortable, but comfort is where dreams go to die. Growth lives in discomfort, and silence is the most uncomfortable place for a weak man to live. Think about the most dangerous men in history, the leaders, the visionaries, the warriors. They weren't addicted to constant noise. They weren't crying out for attention. They were calculating in silence. They were plotting in solitude. Their strength came from stillness. While everyone else was talking, they were listening. While everyone else was posting, they were planning. Silence gave them the edge. It made them precise, focused, ruthless. The man who can sit in a room with no sound, no validation, no applause, and still know his value, that's the man who wins. That's the man who doesn't need to prove anything because he's already conquered the loudest enemy, his own mind. Silence has a way of burning away the excess. It exposes the unnecessary. It makes you lean. It makes you sharp. Weak men can't handle that process. It's too raw, too real. They'd rather drown in distractions than rise in discipline. So they fill every second of their life with noise. They avoid solitude like it's poison. But the truth is, silence isn't poison. It's a test. And most fail it because silence makes them face who they really are underneath the mask. Your calling isn't for everyone. It was never meant to be. That's why real purpose requires real separation. You can't carry everyone with you when you're walking into destiny. People love the version of you that fits into their expectations, their comfort zone, their limitations. But once you start stepping into who you really are, once you start moving with conviction instead of convenience, you'll notice the distance. That distance isn't a mistake. It's part of the design. Separation isn't rejection. It's redirection. God doesn't remove people from your life to hurt you. He removes them to make space, space for clarity, space for alignment, space for growth. You can't hear the voice of your calling with everyone else's voices in your ear. The louder the crowd, the harder it is to hear God. That's why separation is necessary. It clears the frequency so you can finally lock in on what you were born to do. Calling and comfort don't coexist. People want to stay comfortable and still be called, but it doesn't work like that. The deeper your calling, the more violent the pruning. Friends fall off, opportunities dry up, doors close, not because you failed, but because you're being filtered. Elevation demands elimination. God doesn't send warriors into battle with extra weight. He strips them down, makes them lean, makes them sharp, makes them focused. If you're really cold, you'll feel the loneliness. You'll feel the misunderstanding. People will say you've changed, and you've grown, you've leveled up, you've stopped tolerating mediocrity, you've stopped needing permission to pursue what you know is yours. That kind of mindset intimidates the average. That kind of energy offends the insecure, so they distance themselves, let them. They were never part of the mission. The truth is, some people are only assigned to the early chapters of your story. They were there for your confusion, your compromise, your weakness, but they don't belong in the chapter where you become the weapon, where you take territory, where you stop apologizing for your ambition. Your future can't be built on the approval of people who only knew you when you were average. Separation also kills the noise inside. It forces you to ask yourself the hard questions. Who am I without the group? Without the attention, without the validation? If your identity collapses without an audience, you were never really strong. Separation shows you where your strength actually comes from. It's not in the followers. It's not in the crowd. It's in the calling. It's in the discipline. It's in the vision that refuses to die. Don't be surprised when your circle shrinks. That's confirmation, not confusion. The higher you climb, the thinner the air. Fewer people, more focus. The climb was never designed for the crowd. It was designed for the committed. You don't become who you're supposed to be by blending in. You become it by breaking off fear, breaking off dependence, breaking off every attachment that can't go where God is taking you. Greatness is not born in front of cameras. It's not born in applause on stage or in the spotlight. Greatness is forged in isolation. In the dark, in silence, when no one is watching and there's no one to impress. That's where real power is created, not in comfort, not in company, but in the furnace of solitude. The world celebrates the finished product, but it ignores the years of pain, discipline, and sacrifice that built it. Because greatness doesn't show up loud. It shows up after the grinding in the quiet. Isolation is where the weak break and the strong are built. It's where every distraction is stripped away and all that's left is you and the mission. There's no crowd to cheer you on, no encouragement, no reassurance, just pressure, and that pressure is what reveals whether you're a pretender or a problem. It's in isolation where your character is carved out of chaos. When there's no praise to keep you going and you still show up, that's when you know it's real. Everyone wants greatness, but no one wants the process. They want results without the refinement, but you don't become legendary by being comfortable. You become legendary by choosing the lonely path. While others are partying, scrolling, sleeping, you're studying, lifting, learning, building, alone, grinding in silence while the world mocks your ambition. That's the cost, and the weak can't afford it because the price is too high. It costs your ego, it costs your time, it costs your comfort, but it gives you power. Greatness demands discipline. It demands brutal self-honesty. And that kind of honesty can't exist in a crowd. In isolation, the excuses die. There's no one left to blame. You have to look in the mirror and own your failures, own your laziness, own your potential. That's painful, but it's necessary, because until you face your flaws, you can't fix them. You can't elevate what you haven't exposed, and the exposure happens in isolation. Look at any man who's done something worth remembering. He was forged in silence. The vision came when no one believed. The work started when no one cared. The greatness began when it was just him, his obsession, and his God. No noise, no applause, just commitment. The battlefield wasn't the world. It was his mind, and he had to conquer it alone before he could conquer anything else. Isolation is also where clarity lives. When the noise is gone, the mission becomes louder. You start to see the path. You stop looking for shortcuts. You stop needing validation. You begin to move differently, more focused, more dangerous, more deliberate. You realize you don't need the crowd to know you're called. You don't need a platform to be powerful. You just need the discipline to show up when no one is watching, and the patience to let the results speak later. The world wants instant glory, but glory means nothing if it wasn't earned in the dark. Anyone can shine under lights, but few can burn when they're alone in the cold. Greatness isn't a gift, it's a grind. It's forged in hours no one sees, under weight no one else can carry, with a level of focus that only solitude can teach. Aloneness isn't weakness, it's clarity. When you're finally cut off from the noise, the opinions, the distractions, you're forced to confront the core of who you are. That's when alignment starts. not with the world, not with people, with your purpose. With God, with the mission. Being alone doesn't mean you're abandoned. It means you're being adjusted, refined, recalibrated. The man who can sit in the silence of aloneness and stay locked in on his values is the man who has alignment with something bigger than himself. Most people don't know who they are because they've never been truly alone. Their identity is tied to their circle, their status, their feedback loop. Take all that away and they crumble. That's why aloneness is a test. When no one is there to validate you, when no one is clapping, texting, liking, or watching, who are you then? If your confidence dies in isolation, it was never confidence. It was a performance. But if you remain rooted when everything external is stripped away, that's alignment. That's internal authority. Aloneness exposes everything you've been pretending to be. You can't fake it in solitude. There's no mask strong enough to survive total silence. When it's just you and your thoughts, your patterns, your convictions, what's fake gets burned off. What's real rises up. You begin to see what's been leading you: ego, insecurity, people, pleasing, or purpose, discipline, vision. That level of honesty can't happen in a crowd. It happens in isolation. That's where alignment starts, not with what you say, but with what you live when nobody's watching. Aloneness puts your values under a microscope. It reveals whether your words match your walk. Do you really believe what you say you believe? Or is it just talk? A man in alignment doesn't shift with trends, friends, or temporary emotions. He's locked into something immovable. He's stable because he's built on something internal, not external. And that kind of stability only develops in solitude. Most men run from being alone because they've built their life on things that fall apart when no one else is around. But the man who embraces aloneness becomes powerful. He no longer needs applause to stay consistent. He no longer needs attention to stay focused. That kind of man is dangerous because he can't be manipulated. He can't be bought. He's already been through the fire of isolation, and he came out aligned with his calling. Aloneness strips away the non-essential. It teaches you what actually matters. It sharpens your focus. You stop wasting time on things that don't move the mission forward. You stop giving energy to opinions that don't pay your purpose. When you're alone, you start to feel the weight of your assignment. You start to move with intentionality. You start to understand that your life isn't random, it's strategic. And the alignment you find in isolation becomes the compass you use in every battle that comes next. Aloneness is where you hear clearly, not with your ears, but with your spirit. You feel the tension between what's convenient and what's right. You sense the gaps between who you are and who you're called to be. And in that tension, in that quiet, in that sacred space where nothing distracts you, the blueprint gets revealed. Discipline is the weapon. Distraction is the trap. Every man wakes up with two options: build or waste. Every day, every moment, it's a war between staying focused on what matters and getting pulled into what doesn't. Distraction looks harmless, but it's deadly. It steals time, it kills potential, it feeds weakness. And the reason most people never become what they were meant to be isn't because they lacked talent. It's because they chose distraction over discipline again and again until it became a lifestyle. Discipline doesn't feel good. It's not entertaining, it's repetitive, it's quiet. That's why most avoid it. But discipline is what separates those who talk about goals from those who dominate them. Distraction is easy, it's everywhere. It's designed to feel good and lead nowhere. Discipline is hard, it feels like sacrifice, it feels like silence, but it builds something inside you that distraction never can. Self-respect, and self-respect is the foundation of greatness. The average man is addicted to comfort. He needs dopamine, he needs stimulation, he needs something to take his mind off the work. So he scrolls, he games, he talks, He plans, but he never executes, because distraction has convinced him that as long as he's busy, he's making progress. But motion isn't progress, noise isn't growth, only results matter, and results come from discipline. Consistent, boring, brutal discipline. Discipline is a mindset. It's doing what needs to be done even when no one sees it. It's waking up early when the bed feels better. It's saying no to temporary pleasure so you can say yes to long-term power. It's sacrificing your comfort today for the man you want to be tomorrow. That kind of focus is rare. It's uncomfortable, but it builds kings. Distraction is the enemy of destiny. It doesn't come to destroy you quickly. It comes to delay you daily. 1 hour wasted here, 1 day wasted there. Before you know it, years are gone. And you're still stuck in the same place, wondering why nothing's changing. It's because the work hasn't been done, the hours haven't been paid, the price hasn't been met, and every time you chose distraction, you robbed yourself of the man you could have been. A disciplined man doesn't just control his schedule. He controls his urges. He doesn't chase dopamine. He chases results. He's not interested in being entertained. He's obsessed with being equipped. His time is sacred. His energy is intentional. He treats his focus like a fortress because he knows everything powerful starts in the mind, and if distraction gets in, it weakens the whole system. There's a reason why so many stay average. They are committed to distraction. They want the rewards of discipline without the discomfort of it, but the man who locks in, shuts out the noise, and builds in silence, that man becomes unstoppable because discipline compounds. Every day you show up, you build muscle. Not just physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, the kind of muscle that carries weight others collapse under, the kind of muscle that turns dreams into blueprints and blueprints into legacy. Discipline turns a man into a machine. Not because he feels like it, but because he decided to be it. While others are distracted, he's dialed in. While others waste, he builds. While others quit, he continues. That's not just motivation, that's execution, forged by choosing discipline over distraction day after day, until it becomes who he is.